all, Tom Moran here from Tom's Big Spiders. This episode we're going to be doing a rehousing and taking a look at some of the husbandry for Citharacanthus, cyaneus or cyaneus, or I believe the common name is Cuban Violet Orange or Cuban Orange Violet Dwarf. Not the most original name. I know I joked during the video that's original, but it's kind of like they just threw the colors in there. But anyway, this is an awesome little spider that Billy picked up for me a couple years ago and has become one of my favorites. And I know I say they are all my favorites, but this one really has risen to the top. One of the coolest species I keep. This New World fossorial species is from Cuba, and it is a smaller spider with females reaching 4 inches or so. And they're really sought after for the unique coloration. You don't see many spiders that offer that orange and kind of purple-violet combination, just really, really striking. So enough of me talking. Let's take a look at C. cyaneus or C. cyaneus, the Cuban Orange Violet Dwarf. All right, this video is going to feature my C. cyaneus or Cuban Violet Orange, I think it is, or Violet Orange Dwarf. Very original common name there. Picked this one up in April 2020 from Tom Patterson. At the time, it was a ½ an inch or so, and I had it in a small size 6 dram vial. It outgrew the vial rather quickly, so around October of 2020, I actually moved it into a 50 dram vial, and then it outgrew that one rather quickly. So this container here, we put it into this container in May of 2021, and I'll put a little footage of the old rehousing in there. At that time, it was about 2 inches or so, so hit 2 inches rather quickly. This has been a rather fast-growing species overall. I mean, it's not competing with the big ones like Phormictopus or Pamphibedius or Theraphosa, but for a smaller spider, it's been putting on a lot of size. Now, for behavior, this has been pretty much a fossorial tarantula, and I believe it is a fossorial tarantula in the wild, so it's spent most of the time buried. However, it does come out quite a bit, so it's a little bit shy and a little bit skittish, but I catch her out all the time. Now, if Billy backs up for just a second here, what she has done recently, this used to be her den. After her last molt, she was basically right in here. And then the other day, she filled the whole thing in. So it's time to rehouse her so she can have some security. So what we're gonna do is put her in this enclosure over here. I get these boxes on Amazon. I will put the size and dimensions up afterwards. I forgot to write them down. I can never remember what they are. What is it, about 7.5 inches by 7.5 inches by about 12 inches or so. They do not have latches, and they're kind of squeaky. I got to oil those hinges. That's going to kill everybody when they close it. But you can basically buy acrylic hatches and put them on there. I know a lot of people that do it. What I have is a shelf, and I will flash a picture up that the shelf height is just above, if I stack them too deep, just above the top, so the tops can't go anywhere. So I kind of slide them right in. It keeps them closed. Oh, there's the squeak again. And you can oil those. I believe you can use vegetable oil or something. Olive oil. Any type of little oil that, you know, cooking oil in there would be good. But what we got here for a setup is I have a mixture of my own substrate, which is cocoa fiber, some of the remaining peat. I am steering away from using peat moss, but peat, but I have a lot of it left, so I'm using it up. So it's a mixture of cocoa fiber, peat, some topsoil, some vermiculite. We have some leaf litter, some sphagnum moss, cork bark hide, starter burrow under here that hopefully she can adopt if she wants. And there will be a water dish after the fact. I always forget to say, I always put the water dishes in after we get the spider in because it's one less thing to maneuver around when we're moving them. So without further ado, let's get her in. Originally, I was thinking about just dropping this in and giving her a little bump in the butt. There we go. We call this the poke and pray. I don't use it very often, but in some cases it works great. So Billy wants to get a little close-up of her. And I'm not going to go full bore into the husbandry video because I did do a husbandry video on this one about almost a year ago to the date, I think. And unfortunately, her colors are muted out a little bit. I will flash up a picture. I'll see if I can find the picture. It was when I posted on Instagram right after she molted. The colors were absolutely brilliant. And even right now, she's a little duller. You can see kind of the purplish hues in the leg and the orangey colors on her carapace and abdomen that give her the, again, rather original nickname Violet Orange. Now, as far as moisture is concerned, I do keep the substrate moist. I kept it moist when she was in the dram vial. I kept it moist, the bottom layer is moist when she was in the container we just took her out of. And this container here has about 4.5 inches of substrate, and the bottom layers are nice and moist. So if she wants to burrow to the moisture level that she needs, she can. Temperatures in the wintertime in here are around the 73-degree mark or so, especially the shelf that she's on. In the summertime, it can get quite warm in here, so it can hit 80s, low 80s or so. If it gets higher than that, I usually kick the AC on for a little bit just to take the edge off, because I notice my spiders, when it hits 90, tend to get a little bit jacked up. It's a little bit too high for them for a long period of time, but they would do fine at room temperatures. When I had her at the old house, it would sometimes hit low 70s, even high 60s, and she did perfectly fine. Now again, Temperament, it is a fossorial species. She is a bit skittish, but I catch her out quite a bit, and she's been one that I've been able to catch out and get video of, where a lot of my fossorials will immediately bolt right to their dens. This one will sometimes hang out a bit. Now size, I originally read that the size of these guys, the females were very small at 2.5 inches or so. That was obviously not true, because this one right here is about 4 inches. I've talked to somebody else that said they have an adult female that's about 4.5 inches or so. So not a true dwarf, just a smaller species of spider. But easily, she's become one of my favorites, I think, just because of the very unique coloration of her and the fact that she's just a beautiful spider overall. Billy's getting some good footage of her. Now she's going to go on a little walkabout. Hopefully some of those colors are coming through. So what I will do at the end of this video, I will post the last rehousing we did, which had the how to take care of her from up to juvenile stage. As she's stretching, I'm kind of monitoring whether or not she's going to go for a walkabout. We might have to close this in a minute. So for people wanting the information from Slings On, it'll be there. So there we go. C. cyaneus, the Cuban violet orange, or the orange violet dwarf. Again, I don't consider spiders that hit that 4-inch mark to really be dwarfs, but you can argue that point later. So a word about size here. When I was doing research on these guys, especially right before the previous rehousing, I looked up to try to figure out how big they were. I was kind of hoping I had a female, and I read that females were expected to get about 2.5 inches. Well, obviously that is not true. This kind of reminds me back in the day when I first got my O. philippinus. A lot of the people out there talked about it being a dwarf species. Well, my O. philippinus have all hit about 5 inches or so, so definitely not a dwarf. But there is another species out there from the Philippines that resembles it, so there could have been some confusion there. Is there another species from Cuba that looks like this one but may not be the same species? I'm not sure, but from what I've seen and from talking to other keepers, these guys are not a true dwarf species, and females get much larger than that 2.5 inches that people talk about. Now, as far as behavior is concerned, this is considered to be a fossorial species, but I've noticed that mine, and I'll flash up a little bit of footage here, is currently sitting right out in the open and is kind of closed in her burrow. I've spoken to other folks as well that have kept the species through adulthood, and they've said that theirs sometimes tend to abandon their fossorial tendencies and sit right up on top like a terrestrial, which is great because they're gorgeous spiders and you kind of want to see them out and about more. So that will do it for this one. As always, if you'd like to subscribe, very much appreciate it. Click the little circle right up in there. I'm going to put the original rehousing video over here, something else up in here. If you comment, I will respond. Just know it can take me a couple days. That'll do it for this one, guys. As always, stay safe. We'll catch you all next time.